Greetings, bristles, one and all. Welcome to my channel, Bristle Boss. My name is Shane, and today we are going to embark on a journey to the ashen wastes of the Barren Spire. We're going to dip our toe into something a little bit different. Basing. That's right, today I'm going to show you how I do the bases for my Warcry warbands and my Slaves to Darkness and my Blades of Corn. These units tend to be mixed together, or I like to use them together sometimes, so I have based them all in a similar fashion. You want to base your Orcs or your Black Templars in Armageddon, because where else would they be fighting? Such an epic story. Or have your Bloodbound charging through the ash wastes of Akshi, painting the sands with blood. The thud of the Skullfiend tribe's boots herald the rain of blood to soak these sands. In glorious battle in the name of the Blood God. Skulls for the Skull Throne. Hail Corn. Or your warbands are fighting through the ruins of a burned city in the Barren Spire in the 8 points. Well, then I've got the bases for you. Now, I can't take credit for these bases. Back in 2018, my lovely partner gifted me for my birthday a ticket to Warhammer Fest in England. This was a big deal for me. I'd always wanted to go to Games Day, but I was too young at the time. So that got cancelled. But thankfully, 'twas revived in the form of the noble Warhammer Festival. And a lifelong dream of mine, enter Golden Demon, which I did. And let me tell you, that's not what this video is about. Maxime Corbeil, I believe that's how his name is pronounced. I do apologise if it's incorrect. But he's also known as Captain Normandy on Instagram. You will have seen much of his work throughout any Warhammer or Games Workshop publications, but my favourite is his Black Templar army for A Tale of Four Warlords in White Dwarf. During Warhammer Fest 2018, he gave a short seminar on theming your army, and to showcase, he had his Black Templar army. He talked us through all the steps he went through in deciding what to use, how to paint it, how to go about it. The basing, which for me is one of the main reasons I really enjoy his army, because it represents closely the artwork of the 3rd edition of Warhammer 40,000, which had that epic piece of art which is known by everybody. Now I tell you, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that didn't know that little piece of artwork, that vignette of the Black Templars on their holy crusade. Completely secular holy crusade, because the Emperor doesn't believe in any of that. So yes, they're a completely secular holy crusade against the foul Xenos and darker shadows of the Imperium. Anybody who saw it were provided with a printout of roughly what he had spoken about theming an army, and also a painting guide. And I'm going to share with you today the base recipe. Without any further ado, let's be away on our merry jaunt through these ashen wastes of the tabletop. Let's shoot on. See you later. Right, so here we go. Got some blank bases, and I'm going to start off by texturing them. You can use whatever you want here, if you have sand, dirt, whatever, but I'm just using these Citadel Technical texture paints. I've got Astrogranite and a Grelin Earth, and for the Astrogranite I'm just going to apply it here with this sculpting tool, and you don't just put it on, tease it a little bit, because otherwise I find anyway that it tends to set very kind of flat with a minimal texture. So I like to tease it a little bit to bring some of the sediments to the surface of the paint. Then we're just going to put that on in a few patches, and then we're going to apply some Grelin Earth. Now I like to apply this quite thick, because the thicker you apply this, the more cracks you get, or the bigger cracks you get. But it's also nice to have a bit of variation, so try and have different thicknesses. But for this one, I'm going to grab me box of little bark bits, and there's some bits of cork in here as well, and just play around dry fitting pieces until you get a layout you're happy with. I like the look of this piece here because it's kind of slanty, but it's got a flat front on it, so it creates this slight hill, and then the front of it we're going to give a bit of a rough fascia with some cork. And I'm using Loctite super glue here. Doesn't matter, just use some kind of super glue, doesn't matter the brand. I just like Loctite because it's effective. Once you have them bits on, take a few more smaller pieces of bark and just dry fit pieces and kind of play around till you find something that you're happy with. And some of this will be covered up later anyway, so don't worry too much about gaps and seams. If you really want to be thorough about it, I'd suggest using a bit of milliput and filling in some gaps, but I'm not going to bother doing that here because I know my gaps are minimal and they will be filled in with the texture paint. But before that, I'm going to take some small rocks, small stones, basing stones, and just apply a couple of them here and there just to add a bit of colour variation. They're going to look a bit different in the end. So that's how that's looking, and it's back to the astrogranite. So just going to put this in around those bigger rocks and fill some of the gaps and up along the edges of the bark. This is going to just look like some dirt, or at the base of the larger mound area it might look like a bit of scree. That's broken sediment that's fallen down over time. Also going to use some of the Agrellan earth because I like that parched look, but also as like a mid kind of point between those two, and to blend in with the bark and cork mound I like to use this Agrellan badland. Now I happened upon this by accident. I actually ordered Agrellan earth and was sent this the wrong item, and I was pretty teed off, but I made the most of it, and I actually found a use that I like for it. It's kind of like a transition between the astrogranite and Agrellan earth, and you can see here where it's set how nicely it's cracked. The Agrellan earth has cracked. One thing I will advise though, I would recommend you apply a bit of paint or a wash on the base before you put on your texture paints, because they have a tendency to chip off easily, because the base itself isn't a great surface for it to adhere to. I didn't bother doing that this time because I wanted this to be a bit quicker, so. But it's going to be okay because it's going to get sealed in with the paint now. I realised though that this particular basing method, to show a bit more variation, I wanted to show some more rocks. So I went ahead and made this one as well using some bits of slate that I found outside, and I broke it. Show you now, it's really easily done. Just snap it in your fingers and look at all those lovely little pieces. Once they're all glued together and set, going to take some Ungor flesh, put it in the dry palette. And that paint's looking fairly thirsty now, so we'll give it a good bit of hydration there. Lots of water. We want it to run into all those little nooks and crannies, all the little recesses. At this point, the aim is not full coverage. The point is to get it into everywhere. And once that's all dry and set in there, we're going to come back and build up the layer until we feel it's strong enough. As long as we get full saturation into those little cracks and crevices. This is how they're looking all dry. Next, gonna grab Troll's Lair Orange, Ashen Grey, and Doombowl Brown. And we're going to grab our dry palette again. We're going to fill 3 reservoirs with each of those paints, and we're going to absolutely drown them with water. Cheers, that paint's looking very thirsty there, boy. Don't be stingy there now with that. Don't be stingy with the water. Get that paint good and wet. Hup, ya boy. And we're just going to grab a decent wash brush and drop some orange in there. Then some brown. Just let them run into each other. See how runny that is. If you think there's too much, just dry off your brush on some tissue and soak up the paint by touching the brush to it. And I like to be minimal with the ashen grey. Where I will apply lots of ashen grey though is on stone pieces, which you'll see here now. On this base there's only a couple small rocks, if you remember me dropping them on. On this third base there's the first layer dried, and we're going to build up the intensity of the ashen grey again and a bit of Doombull brown into shadowed areas that wouldn't get as much light. So this is how they're looking all dry. Some really nice rich colours there. Jeez, I'd be tempted not to touch them at all, but we're going to take Screaming Skull and slap a dry brush on over them. Go on there. Give it a good smack. Now, as always with the dry brush, build it up slowly. Test how much paint is on your hand first. Just rub your brush against your hand before you go near what you're painting, just to make sure you don't have too much paint on the brush. And you can build that up as strong as you want. Then we're going to take some white. I'm using white scar here, and we're just going to dry brush that over the stone areas. And if you have skulls on it, you can use the same process to paint the skulls as well. And once that dry brush is done, just do an edge highlight of your white paint onto the stones. Then just got to paint your rim, your colour of choice. You can use black if you want. I like to use Rhinox hide because it's a warmer colour, and I just feel like it's a little bit less. It detaches the miniature and the base from your gaming table a little less than black, whereas black is a very harsh stop between the model and their environment. So this is how they're looking all done. I really like these bases. These 3 in particular, I don't know what I'm going to use them for. I have an idea though, which I might cover in a future video. In the future I'll be painting some corn miniatures and utilising similar bases to these, but there will be a slight variation because the corn boys like to get messy, don't they? Huh? You wouldn't want to see them on a night out. They'll make bits of you. But anyway, this is the bases. Quick video. Hope you enjoyed it and you learned something from it. Don't be afraid to give that thumb a wiggle and like the video. I heard that subscribe button said something about your owlass, so go ahead and give it a slap. Leave a comment if you want. Share with your friends. Everything helps. Thank you very much for watching. As always, look after yourself, look after each other, and be good to each other. And I'll see you next time. Good luck to you.